With 2024 coming to an end, I am closing the book on one of the craziest years of my life. I went on so many trips, attended so many events, and got back into old hobbies again. And for a change, I'd like to look back on everything. This is my 2024 in review. I started off 2024 like many other people, closing off the year before. I spent Christmas in New York, I watched Godzilla -1 7 times in theaters, and I finally met my best friend of 5 years in the flesh. 2023 was such a crazy year for me, and I had no idea how much crazier 2024 would get. I started the year getting back into a hobby I had not touched in forever, collecting. I am a collector. Physical media, park merch, and of course, figures. Given how much I loved Godzilla -1, it was only fitting that I got back into figures with Godzilla. I went to the Tamashii Nation store in Times Square and picked up the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 1954 and Hedorah 50th Anniversary set. I still love these figures to this day, especially Godzilla himself. I would pick up many new figures throughout the year, such as the Haya King Ghidorah 2019, Marvel Legends Carnage, Hammond Collection Giganotosaurus, and much more. But my favorite figure from this year was the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 2019 poster color version. I scored it for an amazing deal, and it was great to have this figure in my collection after so many years of wanting it. I'd also get back into painting figures in my free time and even would sell some of them for extra cash for my future trips. The rest of January and February were pretty uneventful. School and work took up most of my days, but at the end of February things started to get interesting. My favorite artist is the Canadian punk rock band Sum 41. At the time, I had seen them twice in concert, as well as gotten the chance to meet the band on 2 separate occasions. In February, the band was in the process of releasing their final album before retirement, and about a month before the album would release, they would post on their Instagram asking for fans to film a music video in the Las Vegas area. And of course, this is an opportunity I could not pass. I would sign up for the video, and on February 16th, they would film the video for the song Waiting on a Twist of Fate at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas. I got there at about 10 at night, and there was a horde of Sum 41 fans. They would call in the first group, and then we would just wait there for hours. You see, we were split into 2 groups. Most of the shoot was with Group 1, who show up in the first verse of the song. And I tell you, we sat there for at least 2 hours while Group 1 filmed. Then everyone goes to lunch, so it takes even longer to get to us. Us extras did not get lunch at first. Nobody cares about the extras. The museum workers were able to get us a few pizzas about an hour later. They were lifesavers, but we were still waiting in the cold. Between midnight and 1 a.m., the remaining group decided to go hang out in the bar until we get to shoot. But me, being the only person below 21 at the shoot, had to wait outside. Another group decided to wait outside with me, which they were awesome for. Around 2 a.m., the director pulls everyone out to do a group shot, where everyone is running at the entrance of the museum. This was my first appearance in the video. We actually filmed 3 different angles of this, but the one that got the faces of everyone did not make the video. So everyone that left immediately after this, I am so sorry for your loss of time. After this, we took another break while the band filmed in the Pennywise room, which is this section showing up on the screen right now. Around this time, I heard a bit of the song for the first time while using the bathroom, and I was determined to be in more of the video. It's 4 a.m. now, there are only a few people left, and finally we get pulled in to film the second half of the video. I am in Group 2 that shows up in the remainder of the video. You can see me here. We did this full hallway shot about 2 times per band member, and then another few times with the entire band in the shot. Because of this, I have my jacket on in some of the shots and some I don't. It was way too hot in there. At about 6 a.m. the shoot is over, I was exhausted, and I did however finally get a picture with the lead singer, Derek Whibley, right before I left. I did not get home until about 7 in the morning, and I immediately just went to sleep. About a week later, the video would drop on YouTube, and it was awesome. I am in a lot of it, and I am so glad I stuck around for the full shoot. In March, I would be given a research assignment of my choice for school, and fresh off the heels of the video, I immediately chose to do a Sum 41 video. This would end up becoming my video on the history of the band from last year. A video I am still incredibly proud of, even more so with the release of Derek Whibley's book later in the year. My video, although missing context in certain parts, was still incredibly accurate, and I know all of my research paid off. I still get feedback from that video to this day. It is one of my favorite videos I have on this channel. Around this time, I would take my first amusement park trip of the year, a day trip to Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. This specific trip was special because it was my older brother Kenny's first visit to this park. Getting to ride some of the amazing rides with him was awesome. I only wish Tatsu and X2 were open, because he is yet to experience anything like them. I also got on my first new roller coaster of the year, the backwards track of Superman Escape from Krypton. It was a short day, but it was a great one. In April, my first true trip would happen. I have been able to visit Six Flags Over Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area every year for the past 3 years. And 2 of those years, I experienced it at the roller coaster enthusiast event, Lone Star Coaster-thon. We would arrive at the park a day before the event and got some rides before it closed down for a private event. That first day, I would ride La Víbora, as I worried it would not be open the rest of the weekend because of the heavy rain the next day. And looking back, this was by far the best decision I made that weekend. La Víbora would be closed the next day for the rain and most of the day after, and these would end up being my last rides I would ever get on it. La Víbora would close forever in November with no announcement whatsoever, so this ride I got would be my send-off to it. The next day would be the heaviest rain I have ever seen. The park could not operate any of the rides because of it. They ended up moving stuff around so the day wasn't wasted. We got a Q&A, and the park was able to open their indoor coaster, Runaway Mountain, and the mini mine train. The park unfortunately did close early, so most of the day I spent in the hotel or at Denny's across the street. The second day cleared up and I was able to do most of the rides in the park, as well as finally do the observation tower, where I got some of my favorite footage of the park from. It was a chaotic trip, but a great one nonetheless. Before heading home though, me and my mom would go down to Trader's Village and ride the Prairie Screamer, which was shockingly fun and definitely worth the little trip. May would by far be the craziest month of the year. The first half of the month I would release I Fell Out of Love with Godzilla, a video I've wanted to make since I started this channel, and it would end up being one of my favorite videos I've ever uploaded, being the most viewed video in this channel's history and getting very positive feedback. My school life would be coming to an end and my senior class would for some reason not be getting a senior trip. I would advocate for months on end about it, but nothing official ever happened. The original plan was Atlanta, Georgia, a city with plenty to do from a learning perspective and just plain fun. I would decide to still do this trip solo, and I'd cut things down to the Georgia Aquarium, Six Flags Over Georgia, and Fun Spot Atlanta. The smart thing would have been to do the trip after I graduated, but I would not have it, and planned it for the weekend of May 11th, 2 weeks before my graduation. This was so I could fit in an extra Sum 41 concert on Saturday, and so my improv senior trip began. My mother and I flew out to Atlanta on Friday the 10th. We got there really early, and our first stop was Fun Spot Atlanta to check out Air Force One, the new for 2023 RMC coaster that has been making waves in the coaster world. I'd get a total of about 15 rides on Air Force One, and the ride would sit comfortably in my top 15 roller coasters. I got tons of GoPro footage, I did the go-kart track they had, and about halfway through the day we'd call it quits and head to the Georgia Aquarium. The Georgia Aquarium has been on my bucket list for almost 5 years now. It is home to 2 rescued whale sharks, and I could not pass on seeing the biggest fish in the ocean. The size of these creatures needs to be seen to believe, and it was an amazing experience finally being able to come here. The rest of the aquarium was great as well. This could easily have been a full day in and of itself, and I would recommend it to anyone in the Atlanta area. I know I'll be back at some point. On Saturday, we would head to Six Flags Over Georgia. I hadn't been to this park in 2 years, and it was great to get back to it. I got some rides on Twisted Cyclone, an extremely underrated RMC, Batman the Ride, Riddler Mindbender, and a back row ride on Goliath, the park's B&M Hyper. We called it quits halfway through the day to get ready for the concert. We arrived at Coca-Cola Roxy around 5 or 6 and secured a great spot up front. The 2 opening bands were amazing, the highlight being the Interrupters, a band I immediately fell in love with. The energy they brought to the stage was incredible and every song was so damn catchy. Of course, the star of the show, Sum 41, was amazing as always. This was the first full set of theirs I had seen, and they played so many of my favorite songs. In the end, I got this awesome t-shirt, an Interrupters pin, and one of Sum 41's set lists. It's one of, if not my favorite concert I've ever been to. The next day, we would do Six Flags Over Georgia again and ride anything we might have missed, including Georgia Scorcher, which is now one of my favorite B&M loopers, and Daredevil Dive, a ride I was not able to do on my first visit in 2022. I ended the trip with a 10-ride marathon on Goliath. It was an amazing trip and one that I'll look back on for a long time. At the end of the month, I would graduate from high school, marking the end of this chapter in my life. It was 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears, but it was worth it in the end. June would be a far more laid-back month. I would go to Knott's Berry Farm for the first time, Ghost Rider was awesome, Silver Bullet is incredibly underrated, and Accelerator is starting to grow on me, but you can call that nostalgia for King Dakar. For July, I would mostly be saving up for my massive road trip at the end of the month, but I celebrated a major milestone with my girlfriend. We had been doing long distance for the past 7 months, and I finally got to see her in July, and we celebrated by seeing one of my favorite movies of the year, A Quiet Place Day 1. At the end of July, me and my family would go on our most ambitious road trip yet. We had gone on 3 road trips prior. 2018, which involved no parks, but a few stops such as the St. Louis Arc and Chicago. 2022, my first year as a coaster enthusiast, hitting up Six Flags over Texas, over Georgia, America, Great Adventure, and New England, as well as Niagara Falls. In 2023, the Texas trip, which we did both the Six Flags parks in Texas, Frontier City, Six Flags St. Louis, which we missed during our 2022 trip, and Silver Dollar City. The 2024 road trip would blow all of these out of the water. Originally, it was just Six Flags Great America, Cedar Point, and Kings Island, but we'd cut Great America and turn this into a Cedar Fair road trip. The final map once we hit the road would go as follows: a pit stop in Frontier City, a solo day at Dollywood, a day at Carowinds, Kings Dominion, and Kennywood, a day and a half at Cedar Point, a day at Kings Island, Kentucky Kingdom and Holiday World both in one day, and Worlds of Fun, a total of 10 parks. We started the trip on the last week of July. We decided to go straight to Dollywood and get the longest drive out of the way first, while we were still hyped of course. Rather than doing Worlds of Fun first and being exhausted driving home from Dollywood, we drove for a day and did our pit stop at Frontier City, got a ride on both Silver Bullet and Wildcat, but Diamondback was unfortunately closed. We continued on, making a quick stop at the Bass Pro Shop Pyramid in Memphis, and finally made it to Dollywood. I would only have 5 hours at the park. So many great ones like Big Bear Mountain, Thunderhead, Wild Eagle, and Tennessee Tornado. Lightning Rod left a lot to be desired though. After wrapping up at Dollywood, I would get 2 rides on the Rocky Top Mountain Coaster next door, and it was a blast. The next day would be Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'd immediately get rides on Fury 325, followed by Hurler and Carolina Cyclone. We'd make our way around the park to Copperhead Strike and Afterburn. Around 7 p.m. we would get a ride on Woodstock Express. We were killing time so a friend of mine could meet us at Thunder Striker. After we got off the ride, all of our stuff we left in the station was gone. This included 2 of our phones, all of our IDs, our car keys, and our wallets. We had no cards or anything. We only had both of mine because I kept them in my phone case and not my wallet. So yeah, we got robbed on the kiddie coaster. We contacted park security. We had a bunch of pictures of the people on the train before us to go off of. It was a mess. I decided to go solo with my friend and get a Thunder Striker ride and a Fury night ride, not wanting to waste the day. And then the park closed. Unfortunately, we did not get the bag back, and we had no way to get into the car that late at night, so we were on our own. The park was nice enough to get us a room in the on-site hotel for free, so we had the next day to figure out what to do. The next morning, after some debating, we decided to continue the trip but cut out the 3 parks not on our pass: Kennywood, Kentucky Kingdom, and Holiday World, and we would be super budget in order to make it work. We only had access to my funds, and luckily I had plenty of saves for the trip. We waited all day for a locksmith to get into our car. Turns out all the ones in the area were at a convention in Las Vegas. How ironic. And the only one in the area had to come back down from a job in Washington, D.C. We finally got into the car halfway through the day and decided to make the most of the park while we were at it. I took my brothers Andrew and Eduardo around the park. We got more Fury rides, some Thunder Striker, and rides on Ricochet and Vortex. We checked out a few of the flat rides as well. In the end, the only credits we missed were the Boomerang, as it had a really long line, and Nighthawk, which did not open the entire day for both days. Maybe we'll get it next time. Never mind. We stayed one more night at the hotel to get a full night of sleep, as we wouldn't get another hotel until Ohio. In the morning, my mom decided to run into the park real quick and get a ride on Thunder Striker before we made our way to Kings Dominion. This was a half day. We started and immediately got a ride on Dominator, the best floorless in the country easily. Berserker was closed, so we walked past it. Maybe next time, never mind. We made our way to the antique cars, got 2 rides on Grizzly, followed by Twisted Timbers. I was a fan of Grizzly, but but could not care for Twisted Timbers. We got 2 rides on Racer 75, followed by Reptilian and Tumbili. We did not miss Anaconda and got 2 rides on that. I can't wait to revisit it. Okay, never mind. And finally got to the main attraction, Intimidator 305. At the time going by Project 305, now Pantherion. What the hell, is that the best they could come up with? This ride blew us all away and is one of the best in the country, if not the world. I'd take a break after a lap or 2 to do Flight of Fear and then get some final rides on I-305. On the way out, we passed by Backlot Stunt Coaster with no line, and quickly got 2 rides on it. It was awesome and was an amazing way to close off the day. I was just glad we got the trip back on the road. The next day of the trip would be the main event, Cedar Point. Andrew, Eduardo, and I would go in solo and knock out a good portion of the park. Raptor, Rougarou, Millennium Force, and after hours of battle enclosures, Steel Vengeance. Good ride, but overrated if I do say so myself. We'd hit a few more of the rides like Wild Mouse, Corkscrew, and ended the day with a ride on Magnum XL 200. Easily the highlight of the park. We'd do one more day at the park, starting with Maverick and Cedar Creek Mine Ride. My brothers did Snake River Falls, but I sat out because it was unbelievably humid. Maybe next time, and okay, never mind then, just wishful thinking I guess. We hit a few more like Gemini, Iron Dragon, Gatekeeper, and Valraven, and quickly got a night ride on Steel Vengeance in the back row. It was better, but still not the best in the world. While we were leaving the park, we noticed Gemini had no line, so we quickly rushed in to get on the other track we missed, completing all of the Cedar Point credits excluding Top Thrill 2. I found the park overrated as hell, but it was still a good time. The next day would be Kings Island. I'd go in solo for most of the day, grabbing rides on the Beast, Diamondback, and Orion, completing the American Gigas for me. I'd wander around getting on some of the other stuff until my brothers arrived, which is when I got some re-rides. I enjoyed this park way more than Cedar Point, and we did a lot with this half day. With only one park left on the trip, I decided it'd be safe to do a solo visit to Kentucky Kingdom and Holiday World, so they got added back to the map. We arrived at Kentucky Kingdom and I was refused entrance for not having an ID. This was a bummer and a waste of time. I went to Holiday World trying to beat the rainstorms and luckily got on everything. I got rain rides on the Raven, some rides on Legend and Voyage, as well as the 2 steel coasters. It was a quick stop, but it was really fun. We'd end the trip at Worlds of Fun, spending some time in the water park and knocking out every credit excluding the kiddie coaster. Mamba was by far the star of the park. After our day, we officially wrapped up the summer road trip. It was eventful, but it was a great time. The next week, I'd do Adventure Dome for the first time in the year and did a marathon on Canyon Blaster, riding it in every single seat. Ride in row 1 or 11 for the best experience. In September, I'd go to Six Flags Magic Mountain for a day. Giuseppe would get his first rides on Wonder Woman and Twisted Colossus, and that same week we'd do Legoland for the first time. It was such a cute park that I wouldn't mind visiting again. October would be another busy month. I would turn 19 in the first few days, and Sum 41 would hold their final American concert in Las Vegas. I met up with some friends from the Waiting on a Twist of Fate shoot, and I had a blast. The interrupters were amazing, especially since I now knew the lyrics to each song, and Sum 41 killed it. With this, I would only have the final concert in Toronto to check off in January. That same weekend, Derek Whibley's book, Walking Disaster, would release. I would read it all in the first night, and my school project was shockingly accurate, something I am so proud of. The next week, he would hold a book signing in town, and I would get my copy signed, and another for my girlfriend who couldn't make it down in time. The next week was all for me and my partner. She flew down for her fall break, and it was amazing to finally get time with her. We watched movies, we went go-karting, it was awesome. After that, the year would die down. In November, I would do my first international trip to Mexico, stopping by SeaWorld San Diego on the way to get rides on Manta, my first roller coaster, and my first rides on Electric Eel and Arctic Rescue. My final trip of the year would be Six Flags Mexico. I did not ride everything, but I got a Medusa steel coaster, my favorite RMC, and Superman El Ultimo Escape, what was my #1 bucket list coaster. It was truly awesome. At the end of the year, my channel would turn 2 years old. I did not know time would fly by so fast. As I close off this video, I just made my first trip of 2025. I don't know if it's up already or if it's after this video. Either way, I will have it linked so you can continue the journey with me in real time. To end off this video, my 2024 was a roller coaster, pun intended. I took 9 different flights, I left the country for the first time, I graduated high school, I filmed a music video with my favorite band, I fell in love, I improv'd the senior trip, I met my best friend for the first time, I drove across the country, and I rode way too many roller coasters. This will be a year I look back on for the rest of my life, one with many lows, but highs that continue to outshine them at every moment. While I close the book on 2024, I start this next year eager for what comes next. Thank you for watching.
You're not alone. Before you know it, your cup's overflown. Will you measure no one that we've ever known? And it's quite alright. And goodbye for now. Just look up to the sky and remember this night, 'cause it's quite alright. And so